Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Hard Count. I'm Michael Emami, and I recently had the opportunity to speak with Hanahan High School's kicker, Blake Morros. Morros is a member of the 2022 class and currently stands at 5 foot 10 inches and 160 pounds. One thing that really stood out to me was his dedication to the game, and that really came through a story he told me on this episode. Again, he's a kicker and punter for Hanahan High School in South Carolina. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. The story that he told me was actually pretty cool, and we had a great conversation on here. All right, everybody, here is Blake Morros. Enjoy. Reflecting on your career to this point, how has it been going for you, and how's the program been?
Well, when I first started, I actually went out for a wide receiver, and I really just wasn't strong enough to throw the ball back. So I started punting it back, and eventually it just kind of rolled into going to kicking coach the one day. And then ever since then, it's just been forward progress. And then around freshman year, I decided I really had something with it. So ever since then, I've just been working harder than I ever have before with anything and getting myself better for the future.
All right, and have you heard from any colleges to this point? Has anybody reached out to you, or have you been in communication with anyone?
I've been in contact with a couple. Nothing too serious yet. I'm just kind of waiting to show what I have for my senior year.
Okay, that sounds great. And so kind of tell me a little about your parents and how they've kind of influenced you.
Well, my mom doesn't really understand the whole football thing, but she just knows that I love it, and she's always there for me and pushing me. And then my dad is my biggest supporter. He's always willing to take me to camps and literally do whatever it takes to get me better.
Okay, yeah. And so what kind of camps have you been doing this summer to this point?
This point, I've done Coastal, CSU, and I plan on doing North Carolina in July, Chapel Hill.
Okay, yeah. So you're a pretty busy guy right now. It must be things are really kind of kicking up there with how things have been going throughout the summer. I know that camps have been pretty crazy now that a lot of the COVID restrictions have been eased. So a lot more kids are attending them right now. And so, kind of tell me about how you navigated through this past difficult year. I know that the Carolinas kind of imposed some restrictions a little bit. It's been a different story for each kid and how they've experienced it. But how has that kind of been for you? Was it kind of easy navigating those restrictions, or more difficult for you?
I mean, it's definitely more difficult. It's a lot harder to see where you match up against than others. Like during the lockdown, I was at the fields every day. I had to pee, because like I'm always wanting to put in work. So every time I'm always asking for keys to get in somewhere. So I guess I just worked hard through the whole quarantine while a lot of people just like sat back. I just used that as one of my chances. And then whenever you get to camps and it's there's not as many people, or you can't really see where you line up in the competition against everybody else. So I mean, it's good because it makes you look better when you win, but to myself, I'd rather win against a lot better people and like a lot higher ranking and just compete with some of the best.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. And so tell me a little about kind of your relationship with your head coach. How has that kind of been going? How has he influenced you?
We actually just got our head coach before last season. So it was kind of questioning, is this guy going to do kicks? Is this guy going to do punts? Like a lot of coaches don't do that in high school. They just don't have the trust on the kicker. He came in, we talked, and he told me he'd see me play, and I earned my trust during spring and summer. And then once it got to fall, it came down to it. I got a couple chances. He went for extra points a good bit, which I was pretty excited for because the year before we went for two a lot. And then punting, we sadly but happily we didn't have to punt too much last year. So, but I did have some pretty good punting stats. So I'm just glad I had to build enough trust to be able to be his guy.
Okay, yeah, that's great. And so, how do you kind of go about balancing the rigor of school and the rigor of athletics? Because I know a lot of kids they focus on nutrition, they focus on weightlifting and all that, and so many things go into being a high school athlete. So, how do you kind of go about balancing sports and academics?
Well, we have a rule at my house that my dad set in place, and that I 100% agree with. As soon as I get home from practice or whatever, I can't do anything until I get all my work done in 30 minutes of it depends on which class. An elective, it's 15 minutes, and the main course is 30 minutes of studying. So I do about an hour to an hour and a half of studying every night before I'm allowed to actually be able to go do something. But most of the time after that, I just go to the gym or go on a run or something, just try to stay fit. A big thing I do is work on my drops after school, but we have a strict code in our house of making sure I get all my academics and everything settled in because you're a student before you're an athlete. So that's really one of my main focuses, especially after this year, struggling a bit. And this next year, I'm just ready to go 100% in the classroom, and being able to maintain football is going to be a secondary behind me in the classroom.
Okay, yeah. And so, kickers, obviously, they train a little bit differently than, and as far as I've heard, differently than guys like wide receivers or linemen
Yeah.
or defensive backs or anything like that. So what kind of goes into your training when you're kind of doing workouts and your training regimen? What kind of goes into that for a kicker?
Well, some days I'll focus more on punting, some days more on field goals. Field goal, I'm all about accuracy. If I miss one, and so I do a sequence. I go across, I hit four balls across the 10, 15, 20 from left, right, and then middle right. And I'll do that all the way back to 60 yards and just push my limits. And that's where I'll get the distance, but I'm more focused on accuracy with those. A big thing that I just recently learned is like stamina kicks and getting your heart rate up. Because while you're just kicking, you're not getting used to game situations. So I've done a lot where I stand behind the ball, I sprint to the sideline, sprint back, take my steps, kick it, and then go to the next one and do it. And then another big thing with being a kicker is you have to stay locked in at all times. It's such a mentally challenge being that sophisticated as a part of a football team. So if I miss one, I'll either have a full field sprint or I'll have 20 push-ups or something for every ball I miss. So I'm actually a lot harder on myself than I think most kickers are, but I feel like you have to be hard on yourself to go somewhere.
Okay, yeah, yeah. And so, what's kind of the first thing you'd want a college program to know about you if they're going to take you as a person, and as an athlete?
As a person, I'm all about trust and faith. If I don't have 100% trust and faith in you, then that's a struggle. But if you have 100% faith in me and trust in me, then you know that I'm going to get it done because I'm a man of my word. And then athletically is I'm always wanting to work and I'm always ready to get better than the next guy. I have a lot of people upset because I'm always asking for keys to things and always asking to go do things and never taking a day off. A lot of coaches have to tell me no, that they have work, or no, they have something to do. Remember on Christmas, I was like, "Hey, coach, is it okay if I go kick at the field?" With one of my trainers that I do outside of high school, and he was like, "Dude, it's Christmas." I was like, "I know. I can't take a break. It's just something I love, and whenever I'm out there, it just feels like I'm in my own world."
Hey, yeah, yeah. You seem very dedicated, obviously, to your craft with that. Kicking on Christmas is not something a lot of kids would have wanted to do, but seeing that you went out there and did it, it shows a real passion for the game and for you wanting to get better, which is pretty excellent to hear on your end. And when you look at kind of, I know that you're a dual sport athlete, right? You play soccer and football, and I wanted to ask you involving that. What's kind of a cool thing that you would want the world to kind of know about you as an athlete? Like something that, a lot of people wouldn't know, just something interesting about you.
I mean, something interesting is I've always played soccer since I was 2 years old. And when I was 2 years old, I was playing with the 5-year-olds. I kind of had to sneak me in there. But I guess I've always been pretty good at soccer. I've always had decent leg strength. I've always was the shorter, faster guy. And then as I got a little bit taller, I just started to get a lot stronger in my legs. I guess the most interesting fact is every year that I've played varsity soccer, I guess I've led the team in goals every year, and that's something I'm pretty proud about since freshman year.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, leading the team in goals in varsity soccer and doing all the kicking work. You seem like, as I said, you seem like a very dedicated athlete. And this is going to be the hardest question that I'm going to ask you. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, here we
100%.
go. Here we go. Think about this carefully. If you were to get drafted by an NFL team, what would be your preferred team you'd want to get drafted by?
Mm. I mean, I'm a big Steelers fan, so I have to go with either, the Steelers or the Saints. Steelers, it's just I've grown up liking the Steelers. And then the Saints, they just breed kickers. They breed Hall of Fame kickers. Like Morstead. Just the list just goes on with that. So I'd probably say the Steelers or the Saints.
Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on, Blake. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me here and getting to talk about it.
All right, everybody, that was Blake Morros out of Hanahan High School in South Carolina. If you'd like to contact Blake, his Twitter account is @Blake Morros. That's spelled @BLAKEMORROS. If you'd like to contact me, my Twitter account is @Emami Michael. Both my Facebook and Instagram are @The Hard Count with Michael Emami. Snapchat is Michael Emami, and again, appreciate all the ads and subscriptions on there. We're up in the hundreds now, so thank you very much for everybody supporting that, adding that, and thank you again for the follows on Instagram and subscriptions on the YouTube channel as well. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already and you're listening to this episode. And be sure to hit the bell at the top right-hand corner of your screen on the YouTube channel, so that way you will never miss a video and get good notifications for when each video is released. All right, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in and checking this episode out. And thanks so much to Blake for coming on. This has been The Hard Count. Do you have what it takes to go D1?